Good evening, members, officers, and welcome to this full council meeting today, Thursday, the 2nd of September 2021. I am Councillor Mark Hurd, Chairman of Morden District Council. As you know, members, the setup for this meeting has been designed to mitigate for COVID. Therefore, in the interests of member and officer safety, I ask all present to work to the protocols agreed at Council on the 29th of April 2021. We are streaming this meeting live, so good evening those members of the public who are watching. This meeting is being recorded, so by being present at the meeting, you are giving your consent to be recorded. Members, during each item, please put your hand up to indicate you wish to speak, and I will invite you at the appropriate time. When invited to speak, please wait for the roving microphone to come to you and speak clearly. If you reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers, that will help all concerned, and please remain seated when speaking. So please remember, members, please wait for the microphone to come to you so that everyone can hear you and that members of the public can hear you on the live feed. I will draw your attention to the supplementary pack for items 11 and 16A. I'm going to move on now to agenda item number 2, which is apologies for absence. Tara, do we have the apologies, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies been received from Councillor Beale, Councillor Jewett, Councillor Fleming, Councillor Helm, Councillor Schubner, Councillor Jarvis and Councillor Shaughnessy. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. I do happen to know, members, that Councillor Beale is currently in hospital. I'm sure we all wish him well. Agenda item 3, this is to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8, inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise, throughout the meetings. Do I have any declarations, please? Councillor Durham. Could I just hold you there a second? We'll just wait for the roving mic to come to you. Thank you, Maisie.
Thank you, Chairman. Non-pecuniary interests as a member of Essex County Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have any other declarations? Councillor Stamp? I don't think you've got a microphone there, have you? Here we are, Maisie, over here. That's it, thanks.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just that I'm a member of Essex County Council, non-pecuniary, if anybody's consulted on the items on the agenda.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, no other declarations. We'll move on to agenda item 4, Council minutes from the 30th of June 2021. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on that date, found on pages 5 to 18, are approved as a true and accurate record. These are presented for accuracy only. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mays. Thank you. If any member wishes to raise any matter of accuracy, they need to indicate their wish to speak.
Councillor Channer.
Councillor Channer. Oh, Councillor Thompson, I'm sorry.
No,
Oh, I did see, yes, it is, yeah, Councillor Channer. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you. Chairman, I think I did send an email to you. And
You
I
did.
apologise if late. Chairman, regarding actually minute 131, which is on pages, actually it covers pages 9 to 10. Chairman, can I just say, firstly, I'll try to keep this short. I think it's a great pity that many points raised by certain councillors, Swain, White, Stilts, Hubner and Siddle and Thompson, were not perhaps referred to directly. I know that minutes aren't verbatim of a record, but perhaps sometimes you reflect the individual councillors. I do feel, Chairman, however, there is a very pertinent question that was asked. I know the minutes revert under the 4 bullet points to answers given. However, there was a pertinent question regarding something which all members have a great interest in and was asked by Councillor Thompson, and very clear definitive response given by the Director of Strategy, Performance and Governance. The response is not recorded in the answers to questions. Mrs Thompson asked a very direct, important question regarding will this body, meaning One Malden, be taking over the direct discussions that MDC have had with the Department of Health or the NHS about the health hub or community hospital? And then she continued with other things. The Director of Strategy, Performance and Governance gave a direct, clear answer along the lines of would not, meaning the One Malden, replace direct discussions with the NHS around the health hub, so those would continue through the Malden Operational Group as they do now, which we are directly represented on. Words to that effect. Chairman, I do think we ought to have a fifth bullet point reflecting that answer given. There's 4 bullet points already showing answers in response to questions asked, but I think that's a very important, pertinent question that was asked by Councillor Mrs Thompson, and I think the very direct, clear answer from the Director of Strategy, Performance and Governance should be recorded. Thank you, Chairman. That's the matter of accuracy. It's an omission, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Channer. Are members happy for that 5th bullet point to be inserted? Agreed. Okay. Councillor Mrs Thompson, did you wish to speak? No, sorry, I was trying to attract your attention. Okay. That's noted. Thank you very much. So we'll have those amended. I think they can come back at the next meeting. Am I correct? They are, yes. Good. Thank you very much. Agenda item 5, public questions. We now move to that as notified by members of the public. I have not received any. I move to Chairman's announcements. I'm very grateful to Vice Chairman Councillor Mays, who has represented me on 2 occasions. One of them was at Dagenham, I believe, and the other was Romford, was it?
No, Southend.
Southend, I beg your pardon. So I'm very grateful for her stepping in for me. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 7 is the minute book, and I will call on Councillor Richard Siddle, Chairman of the Strategy and Resources Committee, to present the minutes. Councillor Siddle.
Chairman, I present the minutes of the Strategy and Resources Committee meeting held on the 15th of July 21, it wasn't remote, found on pages 19 to 36, and I propose their reception and adoption, with the exception, which I will come to minutes numbers 160 and 163. I have been notified by Councillor Boyce that he would like to raise a question on minute number 166. And I think we might have to close the meeting to do so.
Confidential. Yes, I believe this was a confidential matter, Councillor Siddle.
That's correct. So if Councillor Boyce does have a question on minute 166, we will have to close the meeting. Councillor Boyce, just 3 over to the left, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and Councillor Siddle. I do have a question regarding land values, and as this subject was taken in private and confidential, I ask you if you want me to ask this in public now or until we go into P&C at the end of the meeting.
I think it will assist us if we stay open until then, and then we can come back to that matter then. Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Boyce. And back to Councillor Siddle again, thank you.
I know they're not easy. With the exception of 166, the minute 160 recommended that the Council ratifies the response to the Highways England public consultation for the preliminary design of the A12 to A120 widening scheme as set out in Appendix 1 to these minutes. Can I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Swain, I see. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we agree that minute via assent, members? Thank you. I then move to minute 163, the advice service contract, and I put forward the recommendation that bidder 1 be awarded the contract for delivering an advice service from October 2021. Can I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Mays.
Thank you, Councillor Mays. Can we agree this via assent, members? I so move, apart from obviously minute 166, which we will come back to at the closed session. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Siddle. I now move to Performance, Governance and Audit Committee. I call on Councillor Mrs Jeanette Stilts, Chairman of Performance, Governance and Audit, to present the minutes. Councillor Mrs Stilts.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Mr Chairman and Committee, I'm presenting you the minutes of Performance, Governance and Audit on the 29th of July 2021. These are for noting only. Can I ask that these are found on pages 37 to 41. 42 is blank. I so move. Can I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Mays.
Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Can we agree those by, can we note those, members?
Agree.
Thank you very much. We now move on to the Joint Standards Committee, and I call on Councillor Mark Bassinger, Chairman of Joint Standards Committee, to present the minutes. Councillor Bassinger.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I present the minutes of the Joint Standards Committee held on the 17th of August 2021, found on pages 43 to 50, and I propose their reception and adoption. Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Mays.
Councillor Mays. I draw your attention to page 44, minute 214, consultation on complaints process and amendments to the articles for standards arrangements, together with the recommendation to the Council on page 45. I so move.
Thank you. Can we agree those by assent, members?
Agreed.
Agreed. I have Councillor Channer. I've also noted Councillor Swain as well. So Councillor Channer first.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Regarding the recommendation that Councillor Bassinger has just moved, Chairman, I did listen into that meeting, and can I just say, actually, I felt that Councillor Siddle gave some very, very good thoughts and thinking and made some very sensible suggestions. I would say that, wouldn't I? I thought, actually, he was exceptionally fair, and particularly I would like to say regarding Councillor Siddle, and I think he had great insight in that really he felt that if the leader of the council was being informed about complaints, I think Councillor Siddle's viewpoint was that actually any group leader should be notified confidentially when perhaps there was a complaint in respect of one of the members that might be in their group. I understand why the leader might, but I do think Councillor Siddle was absolutely right in that, I have to say. And I was going to move an amendment, Chairman, but you didn't see my hand up. And I was going to amend, actually, regarding the articles, that at the appropriate place it be indicated, along the lines of what Councillor Siddle actually said, that actually, confidentially, that group leaders should be notified of a complaint regarding one of their group members. And that's what I was going to move, but you did rather sort of go on when I had my billboard up, but that was going to be my proposal, Chairman.
Okay, can we just go to, I understand that, thank you. Can we just hear Councillor Swain, what you had to say, please, Councillor Swain.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. A couple of points. One on page 47, where we're dealing with the Parish Council representation on JSC and the fallback to appointments by the Town Council and Burnham Town to the two town councils. This reflects, to some extent, the difficulty in getting an adequate process for the parish council representatives. But if they do come forward, I think they should serve for more than the 2 years. 2 years is hardly going to give anybody much experience of the JSC. They may perhaps only have one meeting. So I think that should be a longer term. And the other point is on page 49, where group leaders are to be involved or could be involved in informal arrangements. I disagree with the involvement of group leaders at all in any of the complaints process.
Councillor Durham.
Thank you, Councillor Swain. Councillor Durham, just over on the right-hand side. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I speak in support of Councillor Channer's point. I think it's absolutely essential that the group leaders are informed when a complaint is made against somebody in their group. They don't need to be given the specific details of the complaint, but I believe that once a complaint has been established as not being vexatious or repetitive by the independent person in the MO, the group leader should be notified that there is an ongoing complaint. Also, Chairman, in respect of Councillor Swain's point about a parish representative, clearly, in the case of the local highways panel, the logical solution is for the EALC to appoint a parish representative to serve on the JSC, as they do for other organisations. That is completely independent of ourselves and would fit the bill ideally.
Come back on that particular point. The
Thank you, Councillor Durham. Councillor Siddle, you wanted to come back?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Councillor Durham there makes a very good point. However, the council did approach the ELC about continuing the process of appointing representatives from the parish and town councils, and the ELC were quite happy for us to take over, and the ELC weren't really that bothered about continuing with that process. So hence why we are now doing it directly to all parish and town councils.
Right, thank you very much. So, Councillor Channer, you're going to clarify your proposal.
Well, yes, if you can do it. I think the appropriate place that I could see was to be actually probably, I can't get that there, under stage 1, I think where actually para 3 referred to the leader of the council will be notified of all complaints against district councillors and generally kept advised. But also I think there's suitable wording that could be applied, and I'm sure Mr Quelch will advise, and Councillor Still will, as he was the one actually moved it, that group leaders be confidentially notified of any complaint about the group, a group member. I mean, as Councillor Durham said, we need to go into all the details, but I think it would be something fair that Councillor Siddle highlighted, and I would, that's what I think that proposal should be.
I'll second that.
And can I just say, Chairman, also, it was Councillor Siddle who picked up, I think the original document that went to the JSC was saying that Malden Town Council and Burnham Town Council should be the ones appointing the parish reps. And again, it was Councillor Siddle that actually felt that the opportunity should be given to all parish councils to nominate. Should they not then come forward, the backflip would be to go to that. So I think that, again, showed to me very great fairness and sensibilities regarding the JSC committee and trying to get the articles right and fair and proper. And I thank Councillor Siddle for that.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr Quelch where we can stand on this. Just at the back there, please. Could you advise Mr Quelch?
Well, of course, Chairman, you can do all of those things that members have mentioned. It's entirely up to members what they do, and obviously the proposal amending that Councillor Chandler's put forward, of course that can happen, and of course it can go in 3. I was just a little uncertain there seems to be to me a little uncertainty, me as MO, when I'm told, well, not to give all the specific details. I don't quite know what that means. So would I therefore give details of the complaint, or would I just simply say a complaint had been made without giving any details at all? I think there needs to be some definition on that.
Yes, can we just clarify then, Councillor Channer, if you could be clear about your proposal, please? Hang on a sec, we'll just wait for the mic. Thank you.
Well, Chairman, I think in the first instance, what the leader gets, I mean, there's the way that you can be told about the complaint without necessarily saying...
Sorry, I can't quite hear you, Councillor Channer.
Oh, sorry, I've got the mic here, Chairman. I think, really, in a similar vein, I'm sure the leader is initially informed of a complaint. You'd be told what the complaint was, but you wouldn't necessarily have all the detail within an email that may be all the verbatim wording that may be applied. It could be just, a disrespect shown to a councillor or something. I'm not advocating there needs to be the continual going on device, because I think that's covered on later in the document, the article, where the group leader will be told. But I think that it's initially, if a complaint's in, then the leader of any group, and I'm not just talking about myself, because Councillor Stamp, being both the leader, she's also the leader of the independents, and if, we had other groups come on board, who knows in the future. So, what I'm saying is it could be just highlighting what the complaint is, but not necessarily being given the text of the email that might contain greater detail. And then, I'm not saying that necessarily that group leader has to be, perhaps of the same degree I'm sure Mr. Quelch might have with the leader of the council, but I think it is important and fair and the right way forward, as Councillor Siddle tried to put over very well, and he did in fact. I just think that is what should happen under Article 3, and I think that's appropriate wording can be applied, Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Before I come to Councillor Thompson, I would just like to hear what the leader has to say about that. Sorry, could we have the mic up here, Maisie, please? All right, okay. No, stay where you are. That's fine. Good.
Not
It's this side. Thank you.
Right. She's been promoted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Stamp.
Thank you. I think a little bit of background from Mr. Quelch might help here about the actual procedure, because at what stage does everybody get involved? Because I think people's complaints and things should be kept private. There's a policy about it. And I'm a great believer that people's independence and privacy should be kept for as long as possible. There's also the issues if somebody has a problem with the actual leader of their party. I feel a little bit that it needs to be heard a bit further, and I'd like Mr. Quelch's advice on that, please, what he feels.
Mr. Quelch.
Okay, my advice, Chairman, at the JSC was exactly that which the leader has mentioned, that the fewer people that know about it, the better, because the process is confidential up until the point. If there is a formal investigation, then normally the results of the formal investigation are then dealt with in public in JSC. That's the norm. But up to that particular point, confidentiality is important in my view. Particularly if you're going for an informal resolution or some other matter, the less people that know about that, the more likely there is to be some success in that process. So my advice to JSC was, the fewer the people, the better. Now, whether you feel the fewer the better should also include the group leaders, obviously a matter for members. But confidentiality is something that is important. And I think I do understand now what Councillor Chan is talking about. When I inform the leader of the council, I generally would send the complaint itself, unless it was so long and complex that it needs summarising. So I would do exactly the same to the group leader if that was included in the procedure. All the evidence, obviously, I wouldn't pass on, but the actual text of the complaint I would. That's how it stands at the moment with the leader of the council.
All right, thank you. I'm going to have Mrs. Thompson first, Councillor Thompson first, then Councillor Siddle, and then go back to Mrs. Stamp, Councillor Stamp. So, Councillor Thompson.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chairman. I think it only makes sense to have
whichever group leader, if we do this, should have whatever information the leader of the council gets. Otherwise, the leader of the council would be in the slightly silly position of being told one thing in one email and something a bit different in another, since she, in this case, is also the leader of the group. And in regard to confidentiality, I can't help thinking that puts members of the leaders group, whoever it is and whoever they are, at something of a disadvantage compared to other members if their leader knows about complaints against them and another group's leader doesn't. It just seems slightly batty to me, and I would certainly recommend that both leaders get the same information at the same time, both the leader of the council and the leader of the group, if of course it's not the same person.
Thank you. Councillor Siddle at the back.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Thompson. I also question the monitoring officers questioning the morals of any group leader and the fact that they wouldn't keep something confidential. Group leaders are given confidential information all the time and they keep it confidential. So therefore, I see no reason why any group leader would not be informed about a complaint. And I think it is about being fair and reasonable.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go now to Councillor Channer, and then I'm going to go for a vote on this.
Councillor Siddle probably has said exactly what I was going to say. We seem to be having telepathic wave thoughts through a number of meetings recently, so I won't labour the point.
Okay, sorry. Finally, the leader, and then I'm going to go for a vote on the. Oh, I see this. I'm sorry, I can't see who. Oh, it's Mr. Quelch. Okay.
Can we come to me first, Mr. Quelch, please?
Okay, if you stay there, Maisie, thank you. Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think Mr. Quelch was questioning anybody's morals or confidentiality in that nature. I just wanted to put that on record that I don't believe that is the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quelch, finally.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Right.
I think Councillor Siddle has misread what I said. I just said confidentiality was important. I wasn't in any way, as the leader said, questioning the morality of any group leader. So I'm sorry that Councillor Siddle thought I was saying that. I most definitely, for the record, was not saying that.
Right, okay. I think we'll go to the vote on this proposal then.
Vote, please.
Is that seconded? It's not seconded. All right, it is seconded. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Lagan. Can we be clear, Councillor Channer, on your proposal that the leader is to be informed in the event of a complaint? Your proposal is that the leader of the group, the leader of the council, if they're the same person, would be informed in the event of a complaint.
That's correct. And under 3, I think I mentioned paragraph 3, I believe Councillor Siddle seconded it, Chairman.
And we're talking about the text of the complaint, is that correct?
Yes.
It is. Right. Okay, members, I hope we're clear on that. We have had a request for a recorded vote, which has been seconded. So could I ask Tara, please, to call the roll?
Thank you, members. If you could indicate for, against or abstain, please, when I call your name, starting with Councillor Bassinger, please. Thank you. Councillor Miss Beale. Councillor Bell. Councillor Boyce. Councillor Mrs Channer. Councillor Durham. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Hurd.
Abstain.
Councillor Hull. Councillor Keys. Councillor Lagan. Councillor Mays. Councillor Morley. Councillor Morris.
The whole procedure is rubbish. Against.
Thank you. Councillor Nunn. Councillor Siddle. Councillor Stamp.
Against.
Councillor Stevens. Councillor Stilts. Councillor Swain.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Thompson. Councillor Miss White. Chairman, the results of that are 16 for, 5 against and 1 abstention. Thank you, Chairman.
That is carried then in that case. Any other business, Councillor Bassenger? There isn't. Okay, no other business. Thank you very much.
Chairman, the council needs to agree the minutes.
Are you happy to agree the minutes? Thank you, members. We move on to agenda item 8, which is minutes of meetings of the council. And we move that the minutes of the council, I propose that we note these en bloc. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mays. Can we agree by assent, members? Thank you very much. Agenda item 9, question in accordance with procedure rule 6.3, of which notice has been given. I have none. Agenda item 10, statement of community involvement. These are found, members, on pages 51 to 120. This is the adoption of the statement of community involvement, and I'll hand over to the leader, Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Chairman, members. The purpose of the report is the draft statement of community involvement. The SCI set out how the council will consult with stakeholders in the community on planning policy neighbourhood plans and planning applications. The 6-week consultation has finished and the responses received have informed revisions to the draft SCI. Council is now requested to adopt the SCI at Appendix 1. I hope everybody's read it. There are a few people who responded and a few parish councils. So the recommendation that I'm going to put, Chairman, if that's all right with you, that the council adopts the 2021 Statement of Community Involvement, Appendix 1. Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Mays, thank you. Councillor Channer. I think the mic's behind you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just say what an excellent report I thought that was, and the compilation of the consultation responses in the very clear manner that the work was presented. And I found it very, very refreshing and encouraging to see that the parish council, I mean, apart from Essex County Council and the NHS, I thought to have the parish council's responses in the detail that they were, and to note that the officer who assessed it all and gave very clear reasons as to why some changes would be made to the document and why some others weren't. I think it was encouraging to see the parish council's views being reflected or actually having an effect on that document. And I would like to thank the officers for that, but especially I would like to highlight Leonie Alpin, who I think, I'm not singling out anyone, but really I am aware Leonie did the report and a great lot of the work, and I thought the way it was presented, the clarity in which the representations were put, the way that the Malden District Council comments were given in terms of the response, so it was clear, and also where the changes were or what changes would be made and where to find them in the document. I would just like to say, extend my thanks to Leonie Open. I'm sure probably all members likewise, and I'm sure those that were involved in the consultation process and gave responses also would be grateful the way that report has come forward. And of course I support the recommendation, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chan. It's always good to have such positive feedback. Thank you. So, members, can we agree this by assent?
No, Chairman. No, I abstain.
You're abstaining. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there a seconder for a recorded vote?
You can just record it.
No, your abstention is recorded. Agenda item 11, taxi and private hire policy. These are found on pages 121 to 188. I draw your attention to the supplementary pack, page 3 to 96. Leader.
Thank you, Chairman, members, officers. Obviously, we had a late updated report. I hope some of you have managed to read it, if not all of you. I think the items highlighted in yellow was the additions that came on late. So the purpose of the report is to introduce an overarching taxi and private hire-based policy based on recommendations in the Department of Transport's statutory guidance, pulling together all the council's policies, conditions, bylaws and procedures into one document. To amend the existing council policy and conditions to reflect the recommendations made by the DfT, and to outline the consultation process with stakeholders, including the taxi and private hire trade. To adopt the vehicle inspection standards manual based on the based on the best practice guide produced by the Department of Transport, Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Inspection Technical Officers Group. That was the new bits on their members. So the recommendations are that the draft overarching policy on taxi and private hire be approved, that the amendments to the existing policy and licensing conditions be approved, members, that the consultation process be approved, and that the vehicle inspection standards manual be approved for immediate use. I'd like to propose that, Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mays, thank you. Members, I'll open this debate to the floor. Councillor Edwards, sorry. Is there any more light here at all?
Thank you, Chairman. An observation, really. Can I draw members' attention to page 183, Appendix 1 or Appendix F?
183. Is this in the supplementary pack? No, it won't be
Appendix
that, will it?
1 or Appendix F? There's two appendixes.
Yeah, sorry, it's the first one, yeah.
Item
In the
5.
first one.
Quest motors no longer exist.
Carry on.
Item 5.
Yeah.
Quest motors no longer exist.
That's correct. No, it doesn't. It doesn't exist. No, that's right.
Thank you.
Okay, that's noted. Any other member wish to speak on this? In that case, yes, Councillor Stevens. Sorry, it's very. Could we have a little bit more light on in here? Oh, trying to work on it. Okay, thank you, Councillor Stevens.
Two questions. One is I noticed there was nothing about COVID in the taxi or the private hire document at all, which seems surprising at the moment because it's such a close, you know, you've got passenger and a taxi driver sitting right next to each other, and I wondered if we should have anything in there about that. And the other is that it states in there that the taxi must display a notice saying if they don't take various forms of payment, but there's nothing about cash. And I think we've moved on now, haven't we? People are not using cash. Cash has become more of the exception, and I think that should be in there. Thank you.
Okay, any other members wish to speak on this? In that case, Mr. Holmes, did you want to come back on that?
Yes.
We'll just wait for the microphone. Sorry, it won't be a second.
Thank you. I'm happy to put those, I think, minor changes to the team that's put this guidance together. And with members' permission, if that is acceptable, we can insert that. If there's any particular reason why it couldn't go in, I can notify all members.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stevens. Are members happy with those amendments? Okay. Can we agree this all by assent then? Your abstention is noted. Thank you. Okay, that's under Rule 13.4. Thank you. We move on then to agenda item 12, future committee meeting arrangements. This is found on pages 189 to 194. This is to consider the ongoing arrangements for committee meetings in light of the changes in government restrictions. Leader.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. Obviously, you've just said it's to consider the arrangements of committee meetings in light of the changes to the government restrictions. The recommendations are... Members, would you like Mr Dodson to take you through the document before I put the recommendations? or shall I just put the recommendations? I'm quite happy. I'm going to put the recommendations so that nobody's saying anything. The recommendations are that the Council reviews the options on Appendix A and agrees an approach noting potential risks and additional resource requirements. Little 2, that the Council reviews the mitigations set out in Appendix A and confirm if any additional measures are required, members. And little 3,
Thank you very much. Great.
You can see the words now on your page. That should the government revise legislation to again allow for remote meetings, the corporate governance working group bring a further report back. Now I'll hand over to Mr Dodson and he can take us through the report. I'm sure members have read it, but Mr Dodson, please.
Good evening, members. Further to the national relaxation of COVID rules, changing down to guidance on the 19th of July, this paper is intended as a review of our committee arrangements and the mitigations we currently have in place. Although the legislation has been relaxed, COVID cases continue to circulate and risks to staff and members have been considered in the detail in Appendix A. Many organisations have kept mitigations in place that they had before the 19th of July with these issues in mind. And obviously, at present, the Council continues to operate to those arrangements that were agreed by Council back in April, subject to any changes following this report. The first table in Appendix A lists all of the current mitigations that we have in place and the rationale behind them and any current issues. The second table within Appendix A presents 4 options going forward, as well as potential issues and benefits of each of them. The current arrangements are adding an additional 0.5 FTE additional resource pressure and obviously the cost of hall hire for district planning and full council meetings. Members are asked to review the options presented and the detail in Appendix A and agree an option for future meeting arrangements, noting the potential risks and costs highlighted. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Dodson. I see a couple of hands. I think Councillor Ms White was first.
I'd just like to put forward an argument for option 3. I mean, I've been very unwell, I'm still undergoing operations, and I think for me this is the most sensible option. We do need to get back in the chamber. I don't think the sneeze screens do that much. I'm quite happy retaining a mask all the way through. And I've had the residents in my ward thank me for the live streaming because they're delighted to be able to watch. Some of them don't want to drive, they don't want to come out, even pre-COVID. So I'd like to propose that we accept option 3. If that's not agreed by the members, then possibly option 4, but retaining the live streaming. But as I say, I really like the idea of option 3. And possibly we could put it forward to review it at Christmas time, see how the COVID cases are going. I think we need to be sensible, but be mindful that we could go into a really bad winter again. And if we need to go back to remote meetings, we can. Thank you.
Just to remind you, Councillor White, that option 4 is no live streaming.
Yeah, exactly. So, we might come back. I said, you know, if everybody wants option 4, which I hope they don't, could we add the live streaming as an option? But certainly I'd like to stay with option 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Siddle next.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we need to go for a slightly more flexible approach in terms of this. There are members and also officers who are concerned about COVID, so I can understand the need for us to move back to the chamber. However, because the chamber is so small, it really does put us in very close proximity to other members and other officers. So my proposal would be that we keep the full council and district council meetings here at the stadium. All other council meetings return to the chamber and remove the screens. And if individuals want to wear masks, they can do so. But that then gives us more flexibility provides greater protection for members, ensuring that we can keep 2 metres apart, and we continue with the live streaming. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded by anybody?
I'll second that.
Councillor Chan, okay, thank you. Councillor Stamp, sorry, yeah, okay. Right. Councillor Nunn next, please. Just at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. You've only got to look at the news to realise that this awful pandemic has not gone away yet. Some of us indeed have been touched by it personally with our families, and you know, I'm disappointed that what hasn't been said so far is something about what the officers have been doing to help us. I'd like to commend the hard work of the officers and what they've done to mitigate things for us, to make us as safe as we possibly can be, and also them, of course. Yes, there's been a cost to the organisation, but that cost helps ensure democracy and representation and continuity. And I think whatever we decide tonight, we need to continue to mitigate the risk.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to point out to this chamber that COVID, by mortality and transmission, is comparable with the flu. I'm sure our emergency services and essential workers will be absolutely rolling about on the floor laughing at us for taking mitigating circumstances when they've had to come into contact with this virus all the way through. And we are talking about silly screens and paper masks that won't do a thing. We're also talking about tests that are inaccurate. Even the bloke that made them has said that. And I just, whilst we need to protect our vulnerable, we also need to get back to normal as we can get. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Channer. Okay, I'll take Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I very strongly support Councillor White. I think option 3, we should do option 3 at least, because it certainly doesn't prevent any members of staff, or any members for that matter. I mean, I don't see why they couldn't be accommodated by request with screens if they want them, if people feel they're particularly vulnerable or particularly worried about it. But I think we should move back to the chamber. I do thank the staff for all the work they've done, certainly echo Councillor Nunn in that, but it is an awful lot of work for them to schlep everything down here for every meeting that we hold down here, and that can't be a small thing, and I think we can maintain a suitable distance in the chamber, and I don't see a great advantage in being here if we haven't got the screens, but I would certainly second option 3, and hopefully with a review to, at Christmas to see what else we could do. But again, like Councillor White, I think if we do go for option 4, it should be with the screening, because there are very few good, streaming, because there are very few good things to come out of the pandemic, but like her residents, mine have said how much they like the live streaming, and I think we should stick with that, as far as I'm concerned, on a permanent basis. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And next door, Councillor Durham. Other side, Maisie. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, I think it's fair to say that towards the first quarter of last year, when the pandemic started and was declared, nobody was really certain about the transmissibility, or indeed how dangerous this virus was. We've learned such a lot in the intervening time. It was initially regarded as being similar to the flu. We now know much more, as does every single country across the globe. This is not just a UK thing. We now know that long COVID is a really serious condition. I know 2 people now suffering from long COVID. I'm afraid it's one of those things that can't be denied. However, we now are in a situation where the majority of people, nearly 80% adults in this country, have now been double vaccinated. The question whether we have boosters is something for government. I think the other thing we need to take account of is these screens are actually useless. They actually hinder the business of the council because we can't see or hear each other properly. It's even worse in the chamber. And I think it's also been proved, with the benefit of hindsight, in fairness, and medical research, that the Perspex visors have very little impact. The only thing that prevents aerosol transmission completely or largely is an FP3 class of face mask. The normal face masks, these FP2 masks, do very little unless they're absolutely brand new. But that being said, if we don't choose to move back to the chamber into some form of normality now, when are we going to? We are acutely aware that there will be another spike in infections when the schools go back and as winter approaches, but we have to make the move at some time. Now, I'm more than happy to move back into the chamber as it is. If people want to wear a mask, and that is the situation at Essex County Council, where our next full council meeting is moving back to the chamber, which is people are in equally close proximity as they are in our chamber, and we are only required to wear masks when standing and moving around the building. They are removed during the debate. So, Chairman, I honestly think that now is the time to take this action to start to get back to normal. People now have to take their own measures and what they feel comfortable with and protect themselves. This is all about protecting ourselves and making our own decisions. And if you want to wear a mask, then wear a mask. And I will choose to when I don't feel comfortable. And at the moment, I'm fairly comfortable without wearing a mask. And the other point, of course, the live streaming is absolutely essential. And if one good thing has come out of the COVID, it has been the live streaming so that the residents of this district can see the council at work, because it simply isn't practical for them to come into the chamber and into the council offices.
All right, thank you, Councillor Durham. I'm going to move to Councillor Lagan now.
I've enjoyed the debate, and I'm pleased that the members are feeling that the time is right to go back into the chamber. There's a couple of things I want to say. First of all, I want to echo Councillor Nunn's comments and that of other members for the officers, because the due diligence that was put in a very worrying time, and the measures that were put in were right and proper.
I'm sorry, Councillor Lane, could you just speak up a wee bit, please? Thank you.
Will that be a high then? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the measures that the officers put in at the time were right and proper, so I just want to record my thanks for that. There's a lot of guidance that's gone out there. COVID being a real issue in a global pandemic, causing untold deaths and an awful lot of issues. But the guidance that the government have put out, we've got to remember that as a council, we're covered by laws, and we have to have a safe place of work, and the chamber's a safe place of work. So in the guidance that's out there, we can work safely by sitting side by side. It's something that they've had in there from day dot. I think it would be very important to allow members to take personal responsibility, but also with a slightly different take on Councillor Durham, to also have respect for other people in the respect of trying to do their best to keep those individuals as safe as possible, because we do have people with health conditions that we should consider. So I'm prepared to support number 3, but I think we should really look at making sure that we have, lateral flow tests, as an optional thing for people, masks, sanitisers, and all of those good things, and wear masks if people want to. And look and be respectful within the chamber. Don't sit in the seats where we used to sit. If somebody feels vulnerable, put them at the end of the horseshoes where they're further away from other people than before. So I'm very keen to get back into the chamber and would support option 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lagan. I'll move now to Councillor Channer and then Councillor Swain. Councillor Channer down the... Oh, Maisie's got that. Well done.
Thank you, Chairman. Some of the things I was going to say have been covered by Councillors Thompson, Durham and Lagan. What I would say is I think I heard quite clearly what Councillor White was saying. Go with option 3. It will remove the hall hire costs, stadium availability, officers, the resource they're requiring, the PA system and everything. So there's savings for the taxpayer. But equally, she did make it clear, I think, about looking at a review to see what the landscape was like. I think she suggested sort of Christmas time or after a few months. And by that time, the schools will have been back and we're moving into a sort of winter period. So I think that was where Councillor White was very, very sensible to actually apply that review, which she indicated in her proposal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Swain.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Referring to a previous comment, I think we have to recognise that to a certain extent we are all vulnerable with this virus, and that is not like flu, particularly with the long-term conditions that can develop. When it comes to the idea of moving back into the chamber, it's all very well sitting side by side, but which would be okay with me on the outer ring, but the people in the lower well would have people directly talking down on behind them. I would suggest it's a bit too soon to change from the current arrangements. And in any case, however we vote on this, Chairman, I think we should vote on the option 1 initially, if only to discount it.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Stevens at the back.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I've just managed to throw my glass. Masks, yes. I know I'm free to wear a mask. I'm free to wear kind of whatever I like. So people who are saying to me, oh, Emma, you can wear a mask. But the mask is about me protecting you from any disease I might have, not the other way around. So it doesn't work to just say, well, if you're feeling vulnerable, wear a mask. This is normal for me as a new councillor, having some meetings in here. It's just about level of risk. We're never going to say, oh, well, let's come to here instead and we get rid of all the risks. Obviously, that's not the case. But if we go to the chamber for big meetings where there are many of us and sit closer together, we're increasing the risk. And I don't see a queue of taxpayers saying that we should do that. Yes, it's going to cost money to continue doing this, and if there's scientific evidence that says we don't need these screens, then yeah, I'd be happy with them going. But I don't want to increase my risk, so I want to stay here when there are large, highly populated meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, members, I think everybody's had an opportunity who wishes to speak. We have had a proposal, which was by Councillor Siddle, to keep the... Councillor White, what was your proposal?
Quarterly review or a 2-monthly review, depending on COVID infection rates changing. So I'd like it to be, although it's option 3, to be fluid, and if there's a spike in cases, then we can review and potentially revert back to here.
Thank you. Leader wishes to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I've taken on board what everybody's said, but not one of you has mentioned the risks to the officers and the staff. Oh, sorry, I do apologise if you did. I obviously missed it. I have grave concerns. We have discussed this. Where I would sit at the top, it's quite close. And I actually agree with Councillor Stevens and Councillor Siddle and Councillor Nunn. I partially agree with some of what the other members have said, but I, for one, yeah, I've been double jabbed. But if you actually look at the statistics at the moment, the people who are being admitted straight back into hospital again are people of my age, which I know I only look 30, but believe me, I'm not, I'm twice that age. And I do think we have to be really careful, and for the sake of postponing it until after the period where we all believe, and you've said it tonight, we're going to have a spike, why can't we just keep it here until most probably December, just to make sure? What is the rush in going back? I understand there's a financial implication, I'm well aware of that, but I do not feel comfortable myself, so I will not be supporting Councillor White's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to clarify, Councillor White, you're advocating option 3, is that correct?
Yes.
With a 2 to 3 month review. Right, okay. And that has been seconded? Seconded by Councillor Boyce. Thank you very much. Right, members, could I ask you to vote, please?
Recorded vote, please.
Is that seconded? Councillor Lagan seconds that. We'll have a recorded vote on this. So, members, this is for option 3, to move all the meetings back to the chamber, remove social distancing, but with other current mitigations and protocols in place, with live streaming and a review after 3 months. Okay, Tara, if you could call the roll, please.
Thank you, members. If you could indicate for, against or abstain when I call your name, please. Starting with Councillor Bassinger.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Miss Beale. For. Councillor Bell. For. Councillor Boyce. For. Councillor Mrs Channer. For. Councillor Durham. For. Councillor Edwards. For. Councillor Hurd.
Against.
Councillor Hull. For. Councillor Keys.
For.
Councillor Lagan.
For.
Councillor Mays.
Against.
Councillor Morley.
For.
Councillor Morris.
Abstention.
Councillor Nunn.
Against.
Councillor Siddle.
Against.
Councillor Stamp.
Against.
Councillor Stevens. Councillor Stilts. Councillor Swain.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Thompson. Councillor Miss White. Chairman, the results of that are 13 for, 8 against, 1 abstention. Thank you, Chairman.
In that case, that is carried. Option 3, it will be. Yes, Councillor Mrs Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman, for letting me speak on this. This is out of order and I apologise. But could we look at providing the higher standard of mask to either staff who would like to wear one or members, indeed, who would like to wear one, given that, you know, this has not been exactly unanimous that we go back to the chamber with option 3. I'm very glad that we are, but if anyone is nervous about, you know, the situation, could we look at them being provided with that level of mask? Because we save the money by not being here, as Councillor Durham has just pointed out. I mean, it might not even need a resolution. I've no idea. Perhaps management could look at that, but I'd like to suggest it.
Right, okay. Well, I understand that, but we voted for it as such. I genuinely do feel for those members, those officers who have not had a say in this. I'll actually go to perhaps Mr Holmes if you'd like to make a comment about these additional masks. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Mr Holmes, but...
Don't forget, masks have to be
Well, obviously we'll look at protection for staff. We have a duty of care and responsibility for our staff, so if it's so appropriate that is suitable, we will do that, and obviously we can make that available for members as well.
Yeah, okay. Right, there are a number of questions. We have voted on this, but I'll just take these comments very briefly for those who haven't spoken before, and I'll start with Councillor Boyce. I'm sorry, I know he's the furthest away. Hang on a sec, Bob. Okay.
Chairman, all I was going to point out is the additional mitigation measures could be covered in recommendation 2. We have agreed recommendation 1, but we have not got to 2 or 3 yet.
Yeah, we've agreed those options.
No, Chairman, there's a recommendation. There's 3 recommendations on the first page of the report under the purpose of the report. And the second recommendation is that the Council reviews the mitigation set out in Appendix A and confirm if any additional measures are required.
Right.
That covers Mrs Thompson's concerns.
It does indeed.
That can cover Mrs Thompson's concerns.
Yes, Councillor Mays.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to come back to what Councillor Stevens said earlier. The purpose of a mask is only going to be any good if we all wear them to protect one another. Me wearing a mask does not protect me, it protects you. And whilst I'm happy to wear a mask, others may not be, and therefore they're not protecting me. Just a comment, thank you.
Right, okay. Leader.
While we're looking at the mitigation, what concerns me is that we already had mitigation in place, like the lateral flow tests, and I feel strongly that councillors who didn't submit their requests or didn't take them should be made to do that now, because we are going to be closer together. I think more mitigation needs to be put in.
What is your point of order?
Please, would be nice, Councillor Morris. Sorry? Please would be nice. I don't think you're the ones to give me...
Councillor Morris, what is it you'd like? What is your point of order, Councillor
The point
Morris?
of order I'm making is the leader has just stated that people should be forced to do medical procedures. They cannot be. Nuremberg Code. I suggest you read it.
All right, mitigation. Thank you. No, I don't think the leader said forced either, no. Right, okay. So have we got the recommendation? Please be quiet, Councillor Morris. Can we have the recommendations, leader? Can we agree the recommendations, members? That is noted. We move on then to agenda item 12.
What additional mitigation measures under recommendation 2 the council is recommending?
Well, I think they're set out in Appendix A.
Are we actually recommending that these extra special masks be made available to members of staff and members if they so wish?
I think Mr Holmes has already answered that question. I think he will be looking into that.
Yeah, we've got a seconder, we've got a proposal, a seconder. Yeah, we've got a proposal, got a seconder to vote on.
Very well. Let me hear what Councillor Bell has to say first.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. It's just a point of information that the FFP3s do protect the wearer as
I'm
well.
sorry, I didn't...
The FFP3 masks do protect the wearer as well as others.
All right, that's noted. So we have a proposal for this extra protection. That's been seconded. Could I have a show of hands, please, on that? Those against? That is carried then. Thank you. Any abstentions? 1. Thank you. 2. That's noted. Right, are we all done with the recommendations? Can we agree those recommendations, members?
Sorry, Chairman, I'm not clear because the members of the council being asked to review the mitigations in Appendix 1. So are we therefore saying, apart from what's just been agreed, we're not carrying on with any other mitigations? It's not, I'm not clear, sorry. Sorry, members, I was just asking for clarification in respect of recommendation 2, which asks that the council review the mitigation set out in Appendix A and confirms if any additional measures are required. Obviously, we just agreed that those additional ones, I'm just trying to seek clarity, are we saying that the existing ones are still staying in place? So it's not clear.
I think if we move the meetings back to the chamber, we have to remove the 2-metre social distancing and the screens, I think, yes. Right, and in fact it goes back to normal. Well, look, we've already taken a vote on this. I'm not quite sure what members want to do because we've already voted on this. I'll take Councillor Lagan first. Right, can I go to Mr Dodson first then?
I'm not sure why you'd come to me, Chairman.
I thought you wanted to speak.
Oh, sorry, I thought you wanted to speak. Okay, Councillor Lagan, just at the back there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll be quite quick. Because in the report, there doesn't seem to be a list of mitigations that we can select from. So, respectfully, I would suggest that we say our mitigations are side-by-side working where possible, provision of masks, FFP3 masks for members to undertake a lateral flow test if they feel comfortable by doing so, hand sanitizer on each individual workstation, and I think that would probably be in line with what the government guidelines stipulate and would be very fair and equal to everybody and very clear and succinct.
I'll second that.
Okay, can I just confirm, Tara, were you able to get that? Yeah. You were, great. Okay, are members happy with those mitigations in place? Your abstention is noted. Right, okay, so we are...
We also need to agree the third one.
Yep, third recommendation, that should... Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, members. Good. Right, so we'll move on then to agenda item 13, Planning Advisory Service, review of recommendations, pages 195 to 210. And this is the report, which will be, I'll hand over to Leader.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, the purpose of this report is to provide considered feedback from the Corporate Governance Working Group further to the recommendations made in the report of the PAS, Planning Advisory Service. PAS are a local government association group that are an authoritative voice in planning policy, providing consultancy, peer support and resource to help local authorities respond to planning reform and embed best practice. I'm not going to present the report. It was agreed that Councillor Siddle will, as the chairman of the Corporate Governance Working Group. And Councillor Siddle, are you okay to do the recommendations?
Okay, we're just taking the mic over now to Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman. In 2020, the LGA and within that the PAS were asked to review our planning committees. The PAS are an LGA group that are an authoritative voice in planning policy and resources to help planning authorities to reform and embed best practice. PAS produced a report with a series of recommendations. These went through thoughtful consideration at the Corporate Working Governance Group. The Corporate Working Governance Group, upon reviewing the report, is presenting to the Council our recommendations for adoption that are detailed at Appendix A. The majority of these are procedural matters. However, Recommendation 11, to move away from individual area planning committees, requires a constitutional change and approval of Appendix B to the report if agreed by members. The working group went through a great deal of discussion, and the rationale for the change is that it will ensure good practice and ensuring consistency when making planning decisions. It will prevent issues that have occurred for members over the past year or so. It will ensure that members can be more objective in their decision making and at the same time will still be democratically involved, as they will be able to make representation at the planning committee for applications in the ward. With one planning committee, it will enable legal representation at every meeting, improving the legal basis of decisions. The detail in the report is obviously given, and it will benefit the Council in terms of staffing and resources as well. At this stage, I am not going to move the recommendations because I would like, because this is such an important issue for the Council, I would like that the debate occurs first.
Thank you very much. Councillor Durham, then Lagan, and then Nunn.
And White.
And White, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. We find ourselves back in a similar position to where we've been in the past more than once. And on every occasion, members express concern that a single planning committee would diminish their ability to give local input for particular planning applications, but this simply is not the case. As members, we're often asked to support our residents' wishes and those of parish councils, often in pretty strong terms. I certainly have. When we get to planning committees, we are obliged, as we've all been trained, to follow the LDP and extant planning policies, which could well be contrary to the local wishes. In order to comply with our legal obligations when determining those applications to follow policy, we may have to vote against the local views, which can be damaging to our position as ward members. A single planning committee should allow ward members freedom to speak and if even to grandstand for the benefit of local opinion. But if not a member of the committee, we wouldn't have the onerous job to vote. In short, we would have the best of both worlds. This means that we can support the local views and uphold them as the ward member, avoiding potential conflict with our parish councils and our residents. We must start to get consistent decisions. One of the benefits, as we've already discussed this evening, has been the live streaming. And when there's not been much on TV, I've been watching both Central and South East committees, as well as obviously attending North West. Members, it is absolutely staggering how different area committees operate, and the attitudes of members towards the application of planning is really quite marked. If this continues, we are certain to face challenge at some point in the future. And whether we like it or not, there is a real risk that our ability to determine our own applications in the future may be removed from us. This is not a thinly veiled threat. It has happened. MHCLG have gone in to authorities and removed their right when they have not been determining applications properly. Chairman, a single planning committee is really the only way, and a single planning committee comprised of committed and well-trained members at their own wish. And Chairman, over the last few years, when I have met other members, many other members from our authorities, they are astounded we still have area committees. And when they say, you know, are you on the planning committee? And I explain how we go, they go, good gracious, the last committee I want to be on is planning, because it puts you in an invidious situation with your residents for the reasons I've just expressed. So it certainly does not diminish our right as members to represent the views of our constituents. In fact, it enhances them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durham. Councillor Lagan next. Just behind you, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I have a complete different poles apart opinion from Councillor Durham, although I respect some of his views that he's put in there. I think that those of us that stood, well, all of us that stood for election, the planning was probably one of the biggest issues that were on it. The development, perceived overdevelopment, concreting over the district. It was something that people feel very passionate about. And representation via election into individual committees, for me, is absolutely critical to represent the residents' views. I think when you have a closed group, and you can say 13 people, I think I read, politically balanced. Well, I thought planning wasn't politically balanced or politically motivated. I think individual opinions and options of people who are close on the ground to determine small, medium and large applications is absolutely critical. That's why the people put us there. I don't think that we should be fearful of making decisions, that groups will come and take our decision-making processes away. I'm uncomfortable extremely with this proposal. The cost that's levied in the report, I think there's about 65,000 residents in the Malden district. Well, that's 88 pence per person to have representation if we stick as we are. I enjoy the challenges of planning. It's the most frustrating thing I find in council, but I feel as an elected representative of the people, to be able to go and make those representations, to learn, to develop, to stand up for things that sometimes you have to stand up for, and vote in a way that the law allows, is the just and right thing to do. So I can't support this without further information on how many determinations have been undertaken by officers that have been to appeal, how many by members, because then we can test our own abilities, whether that part of the equation falls into it. So I'm sorry, I can't support this, and I feel we will be letting the members of the public down, whether it's Mrs. Smith, who has a small application in, or a large application that needs determining. I think it should be the members on each of the area committees and the full council for large applications. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lagan. Councillor Nunn, did you?
Councillor Lagan has said wrong.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor White at the back there, please. Maisie, thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me speak. I mean, I just wanted to add some more on from what Councillor Lagan said. In my email inbox, I get 95% of the emails are for planning, a few are for bins, and the odd ones are for highways, which we pass on to Essex County Council because they're nothing to do with Malden. Now, this main committee that's been proposed is only going to have 16 members. So what that means is, when you get something in your ward, it might be that you are not on that committee. So you can talk about it, but no more than any member of the public can. You've got no say on what happens. And when we talk about consistency, we recently had a barn in Purley, and the committee approved it. I think it was pretty much unanimous. And the officers went away. They didn't issue a decision notice because of an appeal in Hawthorne. And so it came back to North West, and we approved it again. Actually, I couldn't vote the second time because I arrived late. I was held up in traffic. But it's this, we know, and what the argument was all about, sustainability. We knew that application in Purley was sustainable. I raised in the meeting that all the appeals in Purley have been lost because they've all been considered to be sustainable. They've all been allowed. Whereas Hawthorne, they've all been dismissed. And we know this because we are in our areas and we know our areas. And as I say, the only thing that anybody's interested in, well, primarily for me, is planning. That's what I was elected for. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable, but I've always done what I think is best, every single time. Sometimes I regret what I've done. Sometimes I sit back and think, yeah, that was right. But I've always done what I believe to be is the right decision. And following on from Councillor Lagan said, it works out, the saving is only £1,100 a meeting. When I canvassed my residents, they said £1,100, that's cheap, because we get ordinary people like you. And the officers recently, they've lost appeals with plant pack for a fence. Well, I didn't, for me that wouldn't have been a problem. So it's not just us that gets it wrong, it's everybody gets it wrong. And as for legal representation, just give us an email. We can read that before the meeting and take it into account. We don't need to have a legal officer on hand for small applications, extensions or garages or single houses that are inconsequential. So I'd like to put a motion forward that we do not accept this option and that we do remain keeping the three main planning committees, because I feel that we must keep our democracy. It's vitally important as members that we keep our democracy and we keep our decision making. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's noted. I would like a little bit more debate on that first. Councillor Channer is next, I think, just down at the back, Maisie.
So I'm happy for Councillor Thompson to come in first, Chairman, and I'll listen to further debate.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say, yes, we want to represent our residents, of course we do, but I think there's a tendency to lose sight of the fact that planning is not a democratic process. It involves planning law. We cannot do what we think is right for our local residents. We must do what is right for the district as a whole, as set out in our policies, specifically in our local development plan. And in fact, Councillor Jarvis, he's not here, but he won't mind me saying, because it's a matter of public record, that he has actually suggested that ward members should not be allowed to vote on applications in their ward. There are other points of view, and I believe, I agree with Councillor Durham, that it is very easy to get sucked in, really, to feeling that you need to support your residents because you want to, but in fact, when it comes to it, you cannot make a lawful decision that supports what they want, and it's a very difficult position to be in. And yes, I applaud Councillor White for being prepared to be in that position, as I am myself, but we have to follow the local plan. That's how it is. This is not a democratic process. I only wish it were. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Channer, was that your turn, was it?
I said I'd wait to listen to the debate. What I would say is I did say I can hear points from all members across the floor, the varying views, Chairman. In fact, I was one of those that most certainly in the past, when we looked, I think, in this, advocated remaining with the 3 area committees. However, I can see merits in many of the PAS recommendations and certainly about legal representation. I differ slightly from Councillor White in that I do think we can't necessarily rely on Mr Lee and the planning office to necessarily sometimes provide the level of the legal advice we might require. And certainly I'm aware of a committee recently, an area planning committee, where I think some legal advice or from advice would have assisted in the position the committee found itself in. I won't highlight what it was, but it was an interesting one to watch. What I would also say is, Chairman, regarding Councillor Lagan, I know in the past when we did have what I would call the white coats in at one time, I did defend it and get a load of information regarding actually comparative member and officers, because there is quite a significant delegated at the moment. I know we're not as high as other authorities, and I've been watching the appeal outcomes, and in fact some of the officer recommendations or refusal obviously were carried through under delegated, and they've been overturned by the planning inspectorate. So there might be further information. However, I do think we do have to look at the district as a whole, and I know some people might not think that 40,000 as a savings is a lot, but in the climate we're in, there are financial considerations, but as well as, of course, representing the views of our residents. And regarding the local plan, what I would say, yes, you determine planning applications in compliance with the LDP unless there are other material planning considerations that you may be able to consider otherwise. Otherwise, with all due respect, we wouldn't necessarily need, and I will say this, planning officers and even ourselves, we could just have a computer where we pump it all through. So I think there's a number of competing arguments here, Chairman, and I'm interested to hear what other members have to say as well before I come down on the way forward regarding my hand, which way it goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Channer. Councillor Stevens is next, and then I'll go to Councillor Swain, over to the left. And then Councillor Keys, yeah. Councillor Swain, Councillor Stevens first, and then Councillor Swain.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a couple of my points have been made, so I'll leave those. But I would certainly like to see more data. I'd want to understand why we're getting excessive call-ins. Is that because members are actually being advised to call things in when maybe it's not necessary? Yeah, I'd want to see more data around that. It says in the report that there's an opportunity, and I mean, Councillor Durham just painted a lovely picture of not having the responsibility to be on a planning committee, but being able to, rock up and say your piece, which sounds great. And it makes me wonder, well, how would we find people who would be willing to be on the planning committee? And if they were, is that going to warp the amount of hours that people have to spend on council business? And can we do that mid-year when people are already committed to the other committees? If we were to do it, perhaps it should start in May, not at this time of year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Swain, and then it will be Councillor Keys at the end here, Maisie.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think the arguments for the single committee are pretty flimsy, and particularly compared with the arguments in favour of the status quo. The legal presence, I can hardly see when that is really relevant, but because the issues are usually planning issues, and we look to the officers for guidance on that. And as for consistency, I mean, what may look like a similar situation in one area may have different circumstances elsewhere, so it's not so cut and dried. The other problem with a single committee is that people who are not familiar with an area are likely to be more indifferent and to simply follow the planning officer's guidance. I don't think there would be the same level of involvement. As far as this question of representing your local interests, I don't see that as an issue, really. I'm on a district and on town council, and I can, contribute at town council, but I, like the other members in a similar position, make the disclaimer that I might take a different view at district level. And there's very good reason for that, because when it comes to the area committee, you have so much more information and guidance to come to a full decision instead of a rather off-the-cuff one. And I don't have any problem with that. The other problems with this single committee is that it would have to be politically balanced, and the whole point of such a committee would be that it should be geographically balanced rather than political, but that isn't something that we could avoid. So on this question of consistency again, there's one or two things we could do to improve the situation, and I think what we must do is try and make the situation, the current system, work better. I think the question of call-ins is partly a failure of communication, and because parish representatives or parish committees perhaps don't trust what the officers may do on an application, so they call it in just to be sure that the thing is properly discussed. And on the question of experience, if you had a single committee, you would tend to have people who concentrated on planning, and others would perhaps take less interest in what is a very important function. I think every member can and should be up to scratch on how to deal with a planning application in front of them, and to realise that they have to build a case for their position based on policies in the LDP, which we all ought to be familiar with, and on an understanding of material considerations. And if we bear those in mind, any member can make a valid contribution and not be open to criticism. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Keys is next behind you, Maisie, and then it'll be Councillor Boyce at the back.
Oh, good evening. A lot of what I was going to say has been said, but I absolutely thrive at North West Planning. I really look forward to it. And I've been commended tonight on some of the comments I said on the training that we had Tuesday night, was it? Which I thought was great. Now, I was voted to represent my ward, and 90% of my emails are about planning. So I will call them in. And yes, I do struggle sometimes to find policies to call them in, but I normally get there in the end. And I know I don't look it, but I'm 49 in November, and I'm fortunate to live where I was born. So I know a lot of the area in Great Tottenham and the surrounding areas. So as I can't think of the councillor's name, every application is judged on the merits in front of you. Whether it's not in the envelope outside the village boundaries, we all judge on what we can do. I'm not a trained officer, and yes, I do have some disagreements with Mr. Lee over there, but I hope he doesn't take umbrage of it. So yes, if there is one planning committee, I'll be more than happy to sit on it, and I'd also like to be the chairman. So I've got no problems in sitting on any planning committees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Boyce, and then it'll be Councillor Edwards, so right near where you are, Maisie. Just wait there for a second, that's fine. Councillor Boyce.
Thank
yes,
you,
I've got
Chairman. Local government only exists by the will of Parliament. So if Parliament says we don't like what you're doing, they stop us doing it. I have always consistently, when the opportunity arose, has voted for one planning committee. However, I'm now starting to think that what is the purpose of being an elected member? We are constantly told that we can't do this and we can't do that. We can only do what the Local Government Act says we can do. Anything else is ultra vires. When I first became a councillor, members allocated council houses to the people that they knew in their area, they knew that needed the council house. That facility was taken away from us. We were told that it was the housing need from somebody from Timbuktu. No, shall I say from the Midlands or the north of England, outside of our district. So again I say, what is the use of being an elected member? We mustn't, I was told just recently that this PAS people, who is some sort of quango of government, I assume, has said we can't now debate motions on the table. You've got to let all the questions and answers be answered before you can have a motion to approve or not an application. That is without our constitution. Our constitution says you can't debate anything unless it's in the form of a motion. So, Chairman, I have changed my view, and I think that to try and stick up for our local democracy, that we need to keep the 3 planning committees. Thank you.
Okay, I'm grateful for that. Thank you. If you could just wait there, we'll do Councillor Hull, but Councillor Edwards was next, I think. Just at the front, Maisie, thanks.
Thank you, Chairman. A lot of what I was thinking has been said. One of the issues, I think, is consistency, which I think Councillor Swain has already touched upon, between the 3 area committees. It would be interesting to see an investigation between the results of all the 3 committees as to the number of appeals, the number of decisions made, and see if they are similar or not. I think an investigation, should be delayed until an investigation is actually made. But I do agree with some of the other comments regarding local knowledge. That's important. So it is there's a bit of an advantage on both sides, is the way best to put it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to go now to Councillor Hull, and then I'll go back to Councillor Siddle at the back. Maisie, thank you. Do you want to say something? Oh, okay, hang on a sec, Maisie.
Thank you.
Councillor Hull first.
I'd like to say I think it's quite a privilege being on the committee to the Building Committee, and there's been so much to learn, and I'd like to thank the officers for putting their time in to be teaching us all they are teaching us. I think only having 13 people to make the decisions, especially when it's our local people, our local areas, we do need, as Bob said, the local is better, and I would like to keep it as it is. If that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Leader.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually disagree slightly with voting on the motion tonight. I actually think that what Councillor Edwards has said, I did mention about having the data for, we used to get data for South East Planning, North West, etc., Central, to say how many appeals had been lost, the officers' recommendations, what members had lost. And I think sometimes we need more information. I think Councillor Stevens mentioned some information as well. And I would like to do I'm going to wait for Councillor Siddle to do a counter proposal. Thank you, Councillor Siddle. But I think it would be better if we got more information and also looked at the whole of the planning system, because I think we need to address the call-in as well. So why don't we come back with a package that is in its entirety rather than just vote on tonight? But that's my view. Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Siddle, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Leader. So having listened to the debate, and it is something that it's a very cultural change in terms of the council, in terms of this move, and there are a lot of members who have discomfort with this particular proposal. Perhaps we do need more information in terms of the different planning committees and how they make the decisions and which ones have gone to appeal. So the points that Councillor Stevens and Councillor Edwards make. And I think that, yeah, this is something that we need to think about. It's something that we need to think about very, very carefully. And I think if with more analysis and more information, therefore we can come back to this and perhaps next year look at this again, present more information to members. So my proposal, my recommendation is that we withdraw this from the meeting tonight for further analysis, for further information to come to members so that it can come back to council next year. And that's my recommendation.
Thank you. Now, I have to say that we've already had a proposal by Councillor White, and that is to keep things as they are, and that was seconded by Councillor Nunn. Now, Councillor White, do you want to stand by that? Okay, are you happy for that to stay, Councillor Nunn? Okay, that's fine. Councillor Lagan, you wanted to say something, you haven't spoken. Right, okay, so the proposal then is by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Keyes, to keep things as they are with the local committees. Could I have a show of hands on that, please, members? Is that seconded? Recorded vote, certainly. When you're ready, Tara, please call the roll. Oh, hang on a sec. Councillor Edwards. The proposal by Councillor White is that we keep the 3 local committees as they are, and that was seconded by Councillor Keyes.
And that we, sorry, Chair, and that we don't refer it back to look at it again in a year's time?
Councillor White, is that right? Do you want it?
The table and then see how that goes, which is
Right,
to vote on
okay.
keeping the 3 main committees.
Right,
Somebody
okay.
can put forward a motion at a later council
Okay,
meeting, but
members, so-
I'd like to see this done. It comes up every few years to do away with the individual committees.
Okay, so this is not for a referral. This is for a straight vote. Keep it as they are. Right. Councillor Siddle, it's your
Yeah, so I would just like to clarify that if Councillor White's recommendation goes through, this cannot come back to full council for 6 months.
6 months, yeah. That's
so
correct.
if Councillor White's proposal is passed, then the recommendation, so this cannot be considered by council again for another 6 months. So, and it will not go back to the Corporate Working Governance Group.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, Councillor Boyce.
That is actually incorrect.
All right. Just wait for the mic. There we go.
The 6-month rule applies unless a report from a committee. I'll ask Mr. Quelch to actually read out the actual wording. But if a committee report brings forward a report, then the 6-month rule doesn't apply. Or alternatively, if 10 members
Right, I see.
put in a motion.
Yeah, I see Mr. Quelch is nodding. Yeah, okay. Councillor Siddle?
This report has come from the Corporate Working and Governance Group and does not come from a committee. So therefore that doesn't apply. This is not a committee report. It's a Corporate Working and Governance report which reports into full council. So that does not apply.
All right.
Chairman, if Councillor Siddle's committee... Councillor Siddle is chairman of the Strategy and Resources Committee. If the Strategy and Resources Committee brings forward a motion or a recommendation to review this inside the 6 months, then it can do so. I accept that this is not a report of a committee, but a committee can.
Okay, that is noted then. Okay, so we've had a request for a recorded vote, and that has been seconded. So this is the proposal by Councillor White to keep the 3 local committees.
No, none of those. This is a
Proposal to what's in the report.
Okay, thank you, Tara.
Chairman, just to clarify, obviously, and the district planning committee. It's the 3 areas and district planning.
Yes, and the district planning, yes.
And thank you, members. If you could just indicate for, against or abstain when I call your name, please. Starting with Councillor Bassinger. Thank you. Councillor Miss Beale. Councillor Bell. Councillor Boyce. Councillor Mrs Channer.
She did. Actually, Councillor Boyce. Councillor Boyce was there.
That's correct. Councillor Mays, sorry Maisie, could you just come around this way for a sec? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Channer. You did lead the debate, as did Councillor Boyce as well. So that should be just noted. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have to remove your vote, Councillor Boyce.
I disagree, Chairman. I don't agree. But of course, if that is your ruling, I'll change that later, but I'll accept it. But leaving the debate only applies to planning committees, not to full council.
Okay. Could you confirm that, Mr Quelch?
Chairman, yeah, in fact, it's wider than that. It's all regulatory matters, and this isn't a regulatory matter, it's a policy issue. So that is right. If Councillor Mrs Channer would like to vote, she can. But if you haven't heard all the debate in a planning matter or a licensing matter or any other regulatory matter, then you must not vote. But in policy matters, that rule does not apply. Now, it may well be that a member feels it's right not to vote if they haven't heard all the debate, but there's no constitutional restriction on them.
Okay, we're just, okay.
I will be happier, having not heard all the comments, because I was out for a little while, I will not vote, Chairman.
So you're not
that might be
voting, okay.
safest.
Councillor Boyce, and I'll accept a nod.
I was near enough to still hear
okay.
what Councillor Durham was saying, and he was the only person before he passed to Councillor
Okay,
Evans.
so Councillor Boyce's vote will stand. Councillor Nunn.
Should we start again, Chair?
Okay. I think we will, yes. Tara.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, members. So starting again, Councillor Bassinger, for, against or abstain, please. Thank you. Councillor Miss Beale. Councillor Bell, sorry. Thank you. Councillor Boyce. Councillor Mrs Channer says she's not voting. Councillor Durham. Councillor Edwards.
Yes.
Councillor Hurd.
I'll abstain.
Councillor Hull. Councillor Keys. Councillor Lagan. Councillor Mays.
Against.
Councillor Morley. Councillor Morris. Councillor Nunn. Councillor Siddle. Councillor Stamp.
Against.
Councillor Stevens. Councillor Stilts. Councillor Swain. Councillor Mrs Thompson. Councillor Miss White. Chairman, the results of that are 13 for, 7 against, 1 abstention. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So that is carried. Right, well, I think that's, so the recommendations, we don't need to do those. No, okay. Okay, members, thank you very much for that. We'll move on to agenda item 14, sealing of documents, and the report on the procedure for that. Leader.
Thank you, Chairman. Pretty straightforward. The purpose of the report is to change the procedure for the sealing of documents. The recommendation is that paragraph 3.1.2 of the Responsibility and Functions General Provisions document that forms a part of the Constitution be amended to require only one employee to sign whenever any document needs to be sealed. I'd like to make that proposal. Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Mays. Any member wish to speak on this? I think Councillor Channer and then Durham.
Oh gosh, I'm pulling my glasses off now. Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to appear critical here or anything, but actually I do have concerns about, I can see where the officers may be coming from in saying that there shouldn't be two. It's quite clear, previously we have had two, director level, legal, or indeed someone of a managerial level that reports to a director. The recommendation only states about one employee. It doesn't define the status of that employee, which I think is very, very worrying in terms of, it could be, what are we saying, any employee, and I don't mean any derogatory comments about people that aren't in managerial positions or director, but that did concern me. To help the officers out from what they're saying, it's causing a difficulty with two being available. I feel, Chairman, in the past we used to have members involved in the sealing of the documents as well, and I think that would take the pressure off the officer argument. They're saying that the two is difficult at times, and hence one. And therefore, Chairman, I would propose that we do have one employee, either director, legal, or in a managerial position who reports to a director, and I would propose, Chairman, that it either be the leader or the deputy leader or a committee chairman involved in the sealing as well. And I think that gives an ample opportunity across the membership to be able to involve, Chairman, to do with the sealing. So I'm advocating two, one officer, director, legal or manager that reports to a director, and either leader, deputy leader or a committee chairman to be involved in the sealing as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Channer. It does say in 3.1 that it would be two senior employees, and then it speaks about who they may be. So it does say that there. Councillor Durham, you wish to speak?
Oh, thank you. Chairman, it's absolutely essential that all legally binding decisions are safeguarded. And we as the elected representatives, we are the people with responsibility to the district residents. In my time, I've been called to countersign many sealings, and I think it's ill-advised that there isn't a member signature to countersign against that of a senior. There's nothing against the officers or the directors at all, but I just think from their own point of view, it would be much better that an elected representative countersigns these key decisions, and these are the most important decisions that are recorded. So I am very happy to support Councillor Channer's proposal that it could be the leader, the deputy leader, or a committee chair, all of whom should be readily available when things return back to normal, to just put their moniker against a seal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Mr. Quelch for advice.
Perhaps there's a misunderstanding here about the sealing process. The sealing process is simply that two people witness, at the moment, two senior employees witness that the seal is being applied to a document. They are not approving that document. They are not reading that document. And in many cases do not even know what that document is. It is purely a technical legal requirement that a seal is applied. And increasingly, more and more authorities, namely, for example, Essex County Council, all the big authorities, only have one employee, normally a solicitor. And more authorities are going in the opposite direction of what is being proposed to one employee, simply because it is a technical, legal process. It is not the examination of the documents. It is purely witnessing the seal being applied to a piece of paper. That is what the process is, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crouch. Councillor Boyce, just next door, Maisie.
Chairman, thank you. I can support Mr. Quelch's explanation. The council actually used to have the chairman of the council nominated to sign all these documents with the chief executive. But the council, some 2 or 3 years ago, I think, in its wisdom, decided that it was only necessary for two senior officers to sign it. As I understand this report, it is now just for one officer, which I think perhaps is a step too far. I think it should be one of the 3 directors, or plus perhaps legal. But Mr. Quelch is perfectly right. You are not signing approval of the document. You're just saying, I witnessed that seal being applied.
Yeah.
And then you sign the seal register. And if you look in the seal register, as Councillor Durham has said, you'll find my signature in there thousands of times.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Channer, very briefly, please.
Well, Chairman, I hear what Mr. Quelcher says and Councillor Boyce, but I've been involved in Sealand, but I do recall on some things like 106 agreements or some plans, I was asked by the officers to look at the numbers and make sure they married with what was going in the book and everything before my signature was applied. And I did on occasions ask exactly what I was sealing. So I did have an understanding, not in great depth, but just so I felt comfortable signing a particularly legal agreement that was binding the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, so this is merely the sealing of the documents, and it is the procedure that follows. I have had a proposal that it includes the leader and deputy leader or the chairman. I think that was by yourself, Councillor Channer, wasn't it?
Sorry, I did say leader, deputy leader or committee chairman, or it could be the chairman of the council as well. I'm applying those sort of people in those positions, Chairman, and I think that would actually, they should be available as being highlighted when we sort of get more back to normal, and of course an officer of the required level as well. I think it does need to be director. I know you mentioned chairman about senior level, but that to me should be reflected by director, legal or manager who reports to a director, because the recommendation only refers to one employee. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Durham. Okay. In that case, members, I will put it to the vote. Those in favour of Councillor Channer's proposal of including either the leader, deputy leader, chairman or vice chairman, please could they indicate if they agree? Could I have your clearly hands up, please? Could we just count those? All right. Cool. Yeah, we'll call the names out. Okay. Just please say for or against.
Councillor Bassinger. Thank you. Councillor Miss Beale. Councillor Bell. Councillor Boyce. Councillor Mrs Channer. Councillor Durham. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Hurd.
Against.
Councillor Hull. Councillor Keys. Councillor Lagan. Councillor Mays. Councillor Morley. Councillor Morris. Councillor Nunn. Councillor Siddle? Councillor Stump? Councillor Stevens? Councillor Stilts? Councillor Swain? Councillor Mrs Thompson? Councillor Miss White? Chairman, that's 11 for, 9 against, 2 abstentions. Thank you.
That is carried then in that case. Right, okay. We move on now to questions to the Leader of the Council in accordance with Procedure Rule 1.3. I see Councillor Siddle and Councillor Swain. Councillor Siddle first at the back. And Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chairman. Over the past year, the Council has faced the challenge of COVID after having gone through the recent transformation. Having read the report that was presented to overview and scrutiny on the transformation, how does the leader feel the independent administration has faced those challenges and at the same time supported staff and services?
Thank you. So,
thank you, Councillor Siddle. Excellent question. I think we have handled it to the best of our ability. I think the staff, the officers have been superb. It's been very difficult. Obviously, the transformation and the cuts that this council has had to deal with has caused us some issues and still will cause us some issues due to the lack of staff and people on the ground, actually, Councillor Siddle. But I, for one, am very proud of this council. I'm very proud that the majority of people seem to work together for the benefit of the council, and that's from all parties and all sides. And I think the majority of us do the best of what we can to help our residents within difficult circumstances. So I actually think we're doing very well. Not everybody will agree, obviously, Councillor Siddle, but I think the majority will, and the directors and the staff are working very, very hard under the difficult circumstances and pressures that they've all been put under. Thank you.
thank you very much. Councillor Swain.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I want to put this to the leader. Whilst many people enjoyed the events of the weekends of 24th, 5th July and 1st, 2nd of August in Promenade Park, for many local residents, the noise level was excessive and intrusive. Residential streets were jammed with visitors' cars, blocking their accesses, while others blocked pavements to mobility scooters and pushchairs, to which was added noise and disruption when the arena was set up, and particularly when being dismantled in the early hours of Monday the 3rd. How can these problems be avoided or mitigated in future, please?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swain. I'm going to go to forgotten his name, Mr. Holmes in a moment, because we have had some complaints. We've also had many people say what a fantastic function and weekend it was, 2 weekends of entertainment. It is my understanding, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, there is still a wash-up meeting and there's still information to be collected to make sure that if the events go on next year, that we can actually address some of the urgent concerns, and they were urgent concerns because it did affect some residents, and everybody's opinion is valuable. But like I said, the wash-up meeting hasn't taken place. Mr. Holmes, can you help me on that? I could be wrong, but I think it's taking place next week or this week.
I think it's just behind you.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. The events were a pilot event. Obviously, we were looking at how to run these larger events in town. Lots of mitigation was put in place, but there were a number of issues that we obviously identified, and Councillor Swain has mentioned some of those this evening. So there is an officer review meeting, and we will be meeting with the promoter, and obviously the issues that we discovered would be taken into account in any decision to hold that event again, or an event like that again in the town. And as the leader has said, those meetings start next week.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got 3 questions for the leader. The first one was that you contacted me on the 29th of January, and it was concerning a gentleman called Gary Juice. Did you ever use your position at this council to cause him and his business any problems? The second question is, why did you ask me to put stuff on Facebook about Councillor Boyce when you have your own social media? And finally, do you still think that Councillor Hurd is an idiot and a melt? If anyone would like background to any of these questions, have a look at my Facebook, and members, I've emailed you all the relevant items. Councillor Stamp.
Councillor Morris, yes, I do apologise. I keep forgetting things at the moment. I'm not going to be drawn into any of your, comments, trying to disgrace yet another leader. It is very sad, I'm afraid, that because... please don't interrupt. Are you going to listen to me, Councillor Morris? I gave you the respect to... You're interrupting me.
I am listening. Right.
Chairman, I'm not prepared to carry on.
You've asked your question. You've asked 3 questions. The leader has the opportunity to give you a written response to those if she wishes. So I'm going to move on. Does anybody else have any other questions? Councillor Channer.
Sorry, are we moving on, Chairman, or...?
Yes, I'm asking you, Councillor Channer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Could I please, can I ask the leader, can she advise what conversations or discussions that perhaps she has been involved in regarding county deals, bearing in mind the fairly recent correspondence that she would have received?
I'm sorry, Councillor Channer, I can hardly hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I thought the mic was here. Right, okay, Chairman, perhaps I've got to get quite close to it.
Thank you.
Yes, can the leader advise what conversations, discussions, if she can, she has perhaps been involved in regarding county deals, bearing in mind the recent correspondence that she would have received, and which may affect not only this council but those in Essex and, of course, the wider, country. I do have another question as well, Chairman, if I may, but that's the first one. Thank you.
Right, okay. Could you be specific about what county deals you mean?
The one the correspondence referred to, the government have said about county deals in terms of working districts and counties together. I mean, there is correspondence from it that came from, I believe, government.
I can't answer Councillor Channer, I can't answer that question. We'll get back to you according to Rule 6.5 because I honestly don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if Mr Dodson can help me or assist me on that if it hasn't come to me. Obviously, Councillor Durham can because he's put his hand up, so he might be able to answer it.
Organisation might be another word, but it's termed county deals.
No, okay. I think if that question is submitted to the leader, she will respond in writing. What's your second question, please?
Chairman, the second question is obviously recently, it's admirable all the work the officers did to get the splash park operating, but recently, as we know, due to unfortunate happenings regarding staff, the officers, we have had to close it, and obviously we can't open it again. Could the leader perhaps give an indication, because it did refer to the articles I've read about refunds, and I've been asked about this. Can the leader give an indication in terms of the refunds, what sort of amount of money that might be, or the numbers involved? And is there a refund policy criteria thing? That would be very helpful, Chairman, if the leader may have any information on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Channer. We've asked for that information. It's going to be produced by one of the directors, hopefully within the next few days, because we are aware of the refunds. I think there has been some technical issues regarding that, and we're just waiting an update from the directors. So I can give you a written report on that when I get it, but it has been asked for, Councillor Channer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Durham now, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I will re-ask Councillor Channa's question of the leader and remind the leader that she received from the leader of Essex County Council a full summary of the MHCLG proposal for local government reform in the form of county deals. Also, the leader of Braintree, Rochford, Castle Point and Chelmsford City Council saw fit to provide all of their members the same briefing to keep them appraised of the potential future for local government, but members of this authority have not been appraised, Chairman, and I just wonder if the leader could let us know when she plans to advise the membership of Malden District Council about the government's proposals for local government reorganisation.
Okay,
Thank you.
before you answer that, leader, I think she has already explained that if Councillor Channa submits that as a written question, she will give a written reply, but I'll hand over to the leader.
Thank you. Councillor Durham, I think I've already, as Councillor Hurd has just said, I am not fully aware of the information. It maybe has come across my desk. It maybe is being dealt with at the moment, but I don't know. I don't know if Paul Dodson can actually jump in and give an answer on this at the moment, because I can't. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and lie and make something up, members, just to try... Sorry?
Carry on.
Chairman, I'm finding it really difficult. I'm being stared constantly out by a councillor when I'm trying to conduct council business here. I'm finding it intimidating and I'm finding it threatening. Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm talking about you, Councillor Morris. I'm sorry.
Right. Okay. Right. I am going to bring this to a close now. We have been 11 minutes. I think the time is 21:41. And I'm going to go to agenda item 16, which is any other items of business that the chairman of the committee decides are urgent. I do have one. This is to review and appoint a representative to the River Crouch Coastal Community Team Steering Group. Who is going to present this report?
I'm going to do it.
Oh, leader.
Chairman, I'm not sitting here taking that level of abuse.
All right.
What has Councillor Morris just told me?
Just carry on.
I'm not
All right.
having it.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Leader.
Thank you. As Councillor Channa, does she wish to speak before I present this report?
Did you wish to speak, Councillor Channa? No, I've moved on from that. I'm sorry. If you wish to put your question in writing to the leader, please do that.
Asked the question, I believe I asked the question, and the leader said she'd given a response. I don't think. I'm pretty sure. I know you're saying I've got to put that in writing, but I've asked the question verbally. It's on record, and I believe the leader said she'd give a written answer.
That is correct.
But you said I've got to have a written question. I don't believe that I need to, Chairman, with due respect.
Yes, you don't have to write in the question, no. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 19. I'm just getting the papers up. Yes, 16, urgent items, yes. Sorry, I've just lost the page here, sorry. Leader.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. This is an urgent item of business that has been added late onto the agenda, members. It's the appointment to the River Crouch Coastal Community Team Steering Group. The purpose of the report is to review and appoint one representative to the River Crouch Coastal Community Team Steering Group. This matter is brought forward for consideration with the agreement of the Chairman, which is what I've just said, and needs to be confirmed before the steering group meeting on the 14th of September 2021. The recommendation is that the Council appoint one representative to the River Crouch Coastal Community Team Steering Group for the remainder of the municipal year. I would like to make that proposal, and I would like to propose Councillor Mark Bassinger to actually be appointed to that committee.
Is that seconded? It is. Can we agree that, members? Agreed. Councillor Channa.
I did have my hand up very early. I would like to say that Councillor Anne Hull has lived in Burnham for a very long time. She has knowledge of the River Crouch. She's part of the farming community as well, which obviously encompasses the coastal matters as well. So I would like to propose Councillor Anne Hull to be on that body as the council's representative. Thank you, Chairman.
And that is seconded. Okay. So we have a proposal, first of all, for Councillor Bassinger. And could we have a recorded... Is that seconded? Seconded. So we'll have a recorded vote. Should that fail, then we'll move on to the second one. So could you call the roll, please, Tara? This is for Councillor Bassinger.
Yes, Chairman. So starting with Councillor Bassinger, if you could indicate for, against or abstain, please. Councillor Miss Beale? Yes. Councillor Bell? Councillor Boyce is gone. Councillor Mrs Channer? Yes. Councillor Durham? Yes. Councillor Edwards? For. Councillor Hurd?
For.
Councillor Hull? Yes. Councillor Keys? Yes. Councillor Lagan? For. Councillor Mays? For. Councillor Morley? Yes. Councillor Morris? For. Councillor Nunn? For. Councillor Siddle? Councillor Stamp? For. Councillor Stevens? For. Councillor Mrs Stilts? For. Councillor Swain? For. Councillor Mrs Thompson? Yes. Councillor Miss White? Yes. Chairman, that's 13 for, 8 against, no abstentions. Thank you.
That's in that case, that's carried. Councillor Bassinger, thank you very much. I now move on to agenda item 17, exclusion of the public and press. We move to this item to resolve that under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act. Chairman. Yes, Councillor Siddle.
Swain.
And Swain. Councillor Siddle first.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry for interrupting. Councillor Boyce has now left the meeting. So therefore, we didn't actually move the recommendations for the Strategy and Resources Committee. So therefore, I'd like to move that we accept the recommendations for the Strategy and Resources Committee. Can I have a seconder, please? Can we agree that by assent?
Members?
Thank you.
That is agreed then. Thank you very much. So we move to agenda item 7. Yes, Councillor Swain, sorry.
There was a second item on the supplementary agenda relating some updates on the taxi and private hire policy. Do we assume that that's been agreed in the course of the previous discussion?
It was agreed, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Right, okay, so we move to resolve that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following of items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as described in paragraph 12A of Part 1 of the Schedule 12A of the Act, and this satisfies the public interest test. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mays. So at this stage we say goodbye to members of the public. Is that all agreed? Thank you. Tara, can we confirm that the live stream has been turned off before we move?